Hi guys, and welcome to the Tuesday night stream. I hope you're all very well. Hope you had a nice weekend. I've been just looking at some of the comments before jumping on the stream. I saw one there from, where is it? Way at the top. Adrian Bennett, who said Morgan McSweeney has royally stuffed Labour, poor communications, poor strategy thinking, and pushing decisions above his role. Yeah, he's gone, but it seems that some of his minions are still there, causing problems. And that's what we're going to be really talking about tonight. So the Mandelson affair, is it going to bring down Keir Starmer? We'll have to wait and see. That was a pretty interesting testimony that Sir Ollie Robbins, everyone keeps calling him Robinson for some reason. I called him Robinson on a few occasions. Sir Ollie Robbins, it was a pretty damning statement that he delivered in Parliament today in front of the Foreign Affairs Committee. So I'll cover some of that as well. A story on what's happening in Iran. Remember, Iran has not gone away. The situation there in the Middle East has not gone away. How this is affecting food prices. Housing is an issue I want to talk a little bit about tonight as well. Donald Trump and a story on Nigel Farage. So let's jump into the first one, of course, which is a roundup on what happened today with Sir Ollie Robbins.
Good afternoon. The top civil servant sacked from the Foreign Office over his role in Lord Mandelson's appointment as UK ambassador to Washington has told MPs that Downing Street had a, quote, dismissive approach to the process of vetting Mandelson. So Ollie Robbins faced 2.5 hours of questions by the Foreign Affairs Select Committee after the Prime Minister accused him of, quote, deliberately keeping him in the dark after red flags were raised in the security checks. The opposition leader, Kemi Badenoch, has called the evidence devastating for the Prime Minister. So Ollie began his testimony with a statement to the committee.
When I walked into post as Permanent Under-Secretary on the 20th of January last year, I wasn't walking into a vacuum. I arrived to a situation in which a due diligence report had been undertaken into Mandelson by the Cabinet Office, assessing the reputational risks and his fitness for office. The Prime Minister had then presumably taken advice on his fitness for office. The name had been submitted to the King as Minister's recommendation. The Prime Minister had made an announcement that Mandelson was his nominee without caveats. The British government had sought agrément, the formal diplomatic process for a host government accepting a nominee from the US government, and that had been obtained before I arrived in post. He'd been given access to the building, he'd been given access to low classification IT, and from time to time, for case-specific issues, he was being given access to higher classification briefing. So I'm afraid I walked into a situation in which there was already a very, very strong expectation, and you will have seen the papers released already under the humble address, that coming from Number 10, that he needed to be in post and in America as quickly as humanly possible. The very first formal communication of this to my predecessor from Number 10 Private Office being that they wanted all this done at pace and Mandelson in post before inauguration. The handover.
And this seems to be the core problem here, and I mentioned it in a video, that the government wanted Peter Mandelson to be in place before Donald Trump's inauguration. That was at the beginning of January. So they wanted it done before the vetting process had been completed. And that's the problem here. Once again, I asked the question, why did they choose Peter Mandelson? Well, some people said that he was the Trump whisperer. Well, not much of a Trump whisperer, because I'll show you this. Donald Trump posted this on social media today. Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom acknowledged that he exercised wrong judgment when he chose his ambassador to Washington. I agree. He was a really bad pick. Plenty of time to recover, however. President Donald J. Trump. Okay. Look, Donald Trump probably doesn't even remember who Peter Mandelson was. Okay, so I wouldn't even bother putting too much emphasis on that. But the core problem, of course, was he was put forward. Now, as Frotte asked, who put forth his name? Probably the guy who's no longer there now, Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer were very close to Mandelson. And I believe Mandelson was offered this because of his work on getting Keir Starmer into number 10. We're going to give you the top job. And as Donald Trump became president, they was like, okay, now we really need to speed these things up. And of course, that's why the vetting process was not properly completed or not properly done. Brad, thank you so much for that super chat. Entered the year mired in scandal, bought time by a war, started in February, then fell for a sex pest cover-up. This is Starmer or Boris Johnson. Yes. I definitely see a lot of parallels with Boris Johnson. And there is a clip, I don't have it here, but there was the clip of Keir Starmer. Thanks, Brad. A clip of Keir Starmer was in 2022 destroying Boris Johnson over him offloading responsibility onto civil servants while he was lying. Taking no responsibility for it himself. Now, I'm still not sure who's wrong here, because Keir Starmer said, look, I didn't get any of this information. Now, the question, of course, would be also, why didn't you ask? We were talking about Peter Mandelson here. So will Morgan McSweeney be called to the select committee to answer questions in this? Probably not. He should be. Because I don't know if he can be called. He is an ex-civil servant, yes. But I don't know, because his role was different to Ollie Robbins' role. So I don't know if he could. I imagine anyone can be called, and they should call him. Should be asked, okay, who was it that suggested Peter Mandelson be the ambassador before the process of the vetting took place? Hello everybody. Terrible news. I owe £1,000 in unpaid taxes. It's expensive to be poor, but very cheap to be rich. I hate my life. You need to get on to Richard Tice's accountant. Ollie has a good track record, so to him being at fault for doing his job makes no sense. He has a long track record. He's been a civil servant for about 25 years. So it's all very... Look, I'm of the belief, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but I'm of the belief that it was Morgan McSweeney once again. He's the one who was pushing for Peter Mandelson to be the ambassador. Were there any checks done on him? Probably a few checks before anointing him to that position. And then they said, we actually better do security checks. Well, just... do something quick, get him in there. We need him to be the ambassador ahead of the inauguration of Donald Trump.
The briefing I was getting as I arrived at post was what I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance.
Of course you'd have a dismissive attitude if it was already decided, well, look, Peter Mandelson is the guy for the job. Like, we just want you to rubber stamp it. And that seems to be what the case was. And he, as a senior civil servant, said, I'm not going to just rubber stamp that. I've said this before. When it comes to, for example, issues like war crimes, the civil service don't want to go along with the prime minister or the government ministers, because they are the ones who will face the music, not politicians. So when Nigel Farage says what we're going to do is, if we get into power, is we're going to turn back boats and drop people in France and stuff like that. We're going to use the Navy to sink, well, they didn't say that, but use the Navy to push back boats. The Navy isn't going to go along with that. Civil servants aren't going to go along with that, because they're the ones who could end up in jail, not the politicians.
The focus was on getting Mandelson out to Washington quickly. Despite this atmosphere, an atmosphere of pressure, the department completed developed vetting to the normal high standard. Because the vetting process is not there to determine fitness for office or reputational risk, it's there to protect national security.
Well, the leader of the opposition...
There you have it. It was there to protect national security. It was not there to decide whether he was fit for office. So he didn't meet the threshold, it seems. There's a comment I wanted to read out. I do feel for Starmer on this, but it's politics and it's dirty, and Starmer has been very, very naive. It's either naive or dishonesty. And I'm more of the idea of naive, because it seems that he, and I said this before, guys, it's like Starmer is a puppet. You know, it's other people around him that are making decisions on his behalf. Like the fact that he didn't have an interview with Peter Mandelson. Why the hell would the Prime Minister not have a meeting with the future ambassador? Like, I can't think of a reason why that would not happen, other than it was not necessary because Keir Starmer's not in charge. This is not some sort of conspiracy. People around Starmer have said this before, that he's put in charge of the driverless train, sat in the driver's seat and told that he's driving the train when somebody else obviously is. You're correct, Max. The puppeteer pulling the puppet strings. The whole country knew Mandy was dodgy. He was fired twice. Why did the Labour Party think it was a good idea? I think it keeps coming back to Peter Mandelson was very, maybe not instrumental, but he was very influential when it came to getting Keir Starmer into number 10. He was good. He's good at campaigning. He was good at organising. And I imagine, as a thank you, it was, hey, Keir Starmer becomes Prime Minister, we're going to make you the ambassador to the US. Probably, this was before Donald Trump, of course, but they were probably saying, look, as soon as the existing ambassador finishes her term, you will be the next ambassador. Or we can just put you in if, there's a new president or whatever. So I imagine some job was lined up for Peter Mandelson. It seems there was another guy, Doyle, I think his name is. He was supposed to be he was supposed to be given some sort of diplomatic position. And the Foreign Office David Lammy at the Foreign Office were supposed to be not told about that. In the end, he was sent to the House of Lords. So what was his role in all of this as well? So there are people who helped Keir Starmer get into number 10. Morgan McSweeney, another one. He was seen as the guy who was the champion when it came to campaigning. Terrible at running government, maybe very good at campaigning. And of course, he was offered Chief of Staff position. Can the next Labour leader please have an almost psychotic hatred of the far right and fucking kick ass? Angela Rayner, that's who you're talking about, or maybe Andy Burnham. I keep coming back to the point that it's not so much the leader, it's the policies. They have to be policies that help people. There's no point having a leader if the policies don't change, because people are not just upset with the party leader, they're upset with the government and they're upset with the party. Like the polling for the party and the leader are pretty much the same. So it's not like it's just Keir Starmer that's the problem. It's also the view of the Labour Party. And McSweeney is one of the Labour Together founders. There you go. Then in that case, one of those will do. Freckle fuck it. I'll do the job as ambassador to the US. Is the pay decent? I imagine the pay is quite good. Would £300,000 or £400,000 a year suffice? Something like that. It's designed for people who are at the end of their careers. Okay, their careers. See, this is supposed to be a job for the people within the civil service. You have worked your way up through the civil service, and then as a massive thank you, you're sent abroad as an ambassador. Of course, you have to meet the requirements. So I think this really pissed off a lot of people. Morgan McSweeney and Peter Mandelson come in and say, "Hey, we have a different idea. How about Peter goes instead of a seasoned diplomat?" I had to think about the next leader. It's got to be left wing, and Richard Bergen is one of is one to look out for. I highly doubt it's going to be somebody like Richard Berry. I think the left of the party within Labour would have been pretty much gutted. Remember, Keir Starmer sent a lot of them away. So I think it'd be more somebody like Angela Rayner, the soft left, as opposed to somebody further left than that.
Badenoch posted her response on X, saying the following: the evidence from Ollie Robbins is devastating to Keir Starmer. It is clear that Number 10 not only made the appointment before vetting was completed, but that Mandelson was already acting as the ambassador before the vetting, even seeing highly classified documents. With this and the constant pressure Number 10 applied to the appointment and their dismissive attitude to vetting Mandelson, it's now completely clear that full due process was not followed. Keir Starmer has misled the House, where Sir Keir in the last few moments has attended a function at the British Museum. He's been questioned. Let's have a listen.
Prime Minister. You Richard ask more questions about Mandelson, Prime Minister? Is this going to bring down your government, sir?
Sorry, I love how the journalists shout questions from 20, 30 yards away. Like, maybe he'll turn around and go, yeah, I think it will bring down my government. Like, what was he expecting to hear as a response?
Is this going to bring down your government, sir? A question that has been asked of the Prime Minister repeatedly over the course of months. Well, Sir Ollie Robbins was asked about a report yesterday by our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, that the PM's then Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, pressured the former Foreign Office boss, Sir Philip Barton, to approve Mandelson's appointment.
Going back to the point where Sir Philip was still permanent Under-Secretary, it is reported by, I think it's Sam Coates, that the Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, rang Sir Philip and said, in terms stronger than those that I can use before the watershed.
I think you should.
Well, I'll just say that it was just to prove it with terms stronger than that. Does that accord with your impression?
Just prove it.
Does it accord with your impression when you took over from Sir Philip?
I think I recall Philip saying to me, certainly Philip's handover to me has contributed to my strong sense that there was an atmosphere of pressure and a certain dismissiveness about this DV process, which I...
There we have it. There we have it. Morgan McSweeney's fingerprints are all over this. Morgan McSweeney calling up the permanent secretary, the previous one, and saying, just fucking do it. Get it done. We don't want this any more of these shenanigans. Get Peter Mandelson confirmed. Everything Peter Mandelson turns to shit. Everything that Morgan McSweeney touches turns to shit. But once again, it's this idea that people like Peter Mandelson, friend of Jeffrey Epstein, but also his past. He was sacked twice. He's dodgy. Like, I joked at the time, maybe they wanted somebody dodgy because he's dodgy. Donald Trump's dodgy, so we need somebody dodgy. Or, that, well, we better put in Peter Mandelson because they can share stories on their time on Epstein's Island or whatever. It sounds like a hidden agenda. It was about rewarding Peter Mandelson. I think it was about rewarding him for the work he did to get Keir Starmer into Number 10. I don't think it's anything, any sort of grand conspiracy that maybe he has dirt on Keir Starmer or something. No, I think it was like, here's the thank you. We'll make you the ambassador. Like, what could they do as an alternative? Send him to the House of Lords? He's already a Lord, Lord Mandelson. So there's not, like, what else could they offer him? Apart from the greatest diplomatic role, that being the ambassador. Like, he's not going to be Prime Minister. He's not, and I don't think Peter Mandelson wanted to be a member of cabinet. He wanted a cushy number, where he could meet up with his old friends in the US. And he helped Kingman slow down there. He could have been Prince Mandy as opposed to Prince Andrew. They could offer him a job at Tesco's. What's interesting? When he was sacked, he wanted a severance pay. He wanted over a few 100,000, I think it was. Wanted a huge amount of money to go away. And I think I don't know what was said, but it would house. What they should have said to him was, sorry, we can't afford it. Remember, we can't afford it when people are struggling to get by on universal credit, for example. Remember how many politicians say, look, we can't give people on universal credit more money because we can't afford it. How is it when it comes to corrupt politicians and they have to be kicked out? The response from the government is never, I'm sorry, Peter, we can't afford to pay you the severance pay. Okay. Peter wanted his full contract paid. Full contract. What brass neck he does have. Just shows how corrupt and rotten that Westminster is. Yes. You will not find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. All that's been highlighted is the people with power do not talk do not talk to thinking, reasoning people. It's deeply corrupt. That's a massive problem there.
I hope I've tried already to be honest with the committee about. I don't remember Philip using those words. Also, I'm proud to say Philip's probably not the sort of person who.
He's not the type who would say it. Okay, so a little bit more information has come out. I want to show you this from Sky
An
News.
Atmosphere of pressure, constant chasing. Never any interest, as far as I recall, in whether, but only an interest in when. Get this done and get it done before inauguration.
That's Ollie Robbins. Now, you may not recognise him, but he's key to the Mandelson mess the government's now in. He's a big player, the head of the Foreign Office and the guy that Keir Starmer just sacked for not sharing vetting information around Peter Mandelson. Information that the Prime Minister says he should absolutely have been told about.
If I had known before he took up his post.
Jesus Christ. Reagan says Peter Mandelson asked the Foreign Office for £500,000 severance payment. Once again, they should have said to him, sorry, we can't afford it. Sling your hook.
I would not have gone ahead with the appointment.
That's Starmer's version of events, but those clips you heard at the start are the other side of this story.
No, like when I say he can't afford it, that's the response whenever they say we need to, help poor people. We need to help the vulnerable. We need to help the disabled. The response from politicians is always, well, we can't really afford it, can we?
And at the heart of it, what we heard from Ollie Robbins in over 2 hours of evidence to MPs was really clear that there was an atmosphere of pressure to get the Mandelson appointment done and over the line. And that there was a team at the heart of government in the Cabinet Office that was certainly not as obsessed with vetting back then as they appear to be now.
What I felt was a generally dismissive attitude to his vetting clearance.
And jaw-droppingly, we heard from Ollie Robbins that the Cabinet Office position was that there was no need to vet Mandelson at all.
He was a member of the House of Lords. He was a Privy Councillor. The risks that attending his appointment were well known and had been made clear to the Prime Minister before appointment.
Robbins felt that if he did deny Peter Mandelson vetting, he would be causing the Prime Minister a big problem.
What problem? I understand that's what he did and that's what he believed. If I go against Morgan McSweeney, then I'm going to create problems for the Prime Minister, because then the Prime Minister will have to say, sorry, remember we told Peter Mandelson that he has the job, and we told everyone that Peter Mandelson is going to be the next ambassador. Yeah, that was wrong. He failed the vetting process, or he didn't meet the threshold. That would have been embarrassing for Keir Starmer. He would have had to stand up in the House of Commons and answer questions from shadow cabinet ministers, from Kemi Badenoch, from members of the opposition. Why did Peter Mandelson fail? Why did you appoint a guy when he failed? That would have happened at the very beginning. Instead of actually, this is something that I keep hearing from people. Well, this is a normal procedure. How is this a normal procedure? Can anyone name a job where you're appointed before you do the interview. Can you imagine if, if a doctor, a surgeon, was given the job and then they actually check, let's check to see if this person actually has a qualification. Can you imagine? I can't think of any job where you're given the job, unless it's something political, but this was a diplomatic role and a very serious one. Brad, thanks so much for that super chat once again. Next year, Blair's 24-year first impact is up. So Mandelson will own Blair's soul. He has a soul. Thanks, Brad. What is he going to do with it? Sell it on eBay or something?
He also made it clear in his...
No, he'll sell it to Trump. Trump will take Tony Blair's soul, dip it in gold and hang it on a wall.
evidence that he thought it could cause a problem, not just for the PM, but a problem with Donald Trump.
I think if the nomination had changed after that point, the incoming administration may well have commented on it publicly, and it would, yes, have caused quite an issue in the relationship.
I don't know. I don't fully agree there, because Donald Trump is extremely fickle. So what they should have done is they should have told Peter Mandelson, you need to go. We can't go along with you. Find a reason. Tell them that you got bored. Tell them that you have a stomach ache, okay, and you can't take up the job. You're starting a new hobby. You forgot something that you needed to do. Like, come up with some reason why you can't become the ambassador, so that we don't have to fire you. But no, he wanted that position. Obviously, Keir Starmer wanted him in that position, and of course, the Prince of Darkness 2.0, Morgan McSweeney, wanted him in that position as well.
Would that have damaged our relations with the United States, in your view?
I think it certainly would have had. I think it would have damaged them, yes, Sir John.
And in the committee, he lifted the lid a bit on how vetting works. Crucially, he challenged the Prime Minister's assertion that Mandelson had failed vetting, saying that's not how it works. He said that he was told by the vetting service that they were leaning to recommend against appointing Mandelson, but that the case was borderline, and the Foreign Office decided that they could manage and mitigate those risks. Now, where Robin's account gets unpicked a bit is that there isn't any record of these discussions between himself and the security vetting services. And
how is that possible? So this is a problem with Robin's statement. He made a number of claims, but he had no evidence to back them up. So why wasn't there a record? Like, he's a senior civil servant. Surely he has a record of these conversations, notes, something like this. But it seems he doesn't have anything. Now he came out and he was asked about that, and he said, "No, I don't have any notes." And he was criticised over that. That's a bit fishy as well. I'm not saying that, it's all down to Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer, and Ollie Robbins is completely in the clear here. He's a victim of all of this. He probably failed on a number of things, but the problem, of course, here is they wanted Peter Mandelson to be the ambassador, and they were going to get their way, and they forced it through. Fronte, thank you so much for that super chat. This is similar to what happens in the US. It's a vetting process for department heads and ambassadors. But I imagine the vetting process happens before the appointment. Like, somebody can be suggested, okay, let's go with this individual. They're vetted, and then if they come out clear on the other side, then they are appointed. Or maybe I'm missing something. Is there a situation where people are appointed before they're vetted? Like, somebody can be nominated, vetted, and then appointed, I would imagine. That's the normal procedure. But a situation where somebody is appointed to a job, and it's not like just, well, we'll offer Peter Mandelson the job. As Ollie Robbins pointed out, Peter Mandelson had access to tools. He had his own computer. He was offered a computer. He was given equipment. He was given a minimum level of security while that process was ongoing. Is that normal? That'd be like giving you or I, before we're vetted, access to sensitive information. I don't know how sensitive, but a level that's much more than other civil servants, for example. No, they're appointed. They pay to get these positions, especially for ambassadors. Pay. Okay, that's interesting. It's such a shame. Starmer is probably a nice man. However, he doesn't have the political experience. I keep saying, look, Keir Starmer is a placeholder. Or maybe placeholder is not the right term. Keir Starmer is a puppet. And I don't mean this in some sort of conspiracy theory type way. I mean, he's just there. He's there as a vessel. So somebody tells him what to do and he does it. This is why it didn't make any sense why he would support policies that would make no sense whatsoever. This is why he said that, well, I'm going to be like Jeremy Corbyn 2.0, and then he went in the opposite direction. I honestly, do you remember the speech he gave, the Rivers of Blood speech type, or the Island of Strangers speech? That's not something that he would say. That's something somebody else said for him, that somebody else wrote for him to say. He doesn't seem to be a person like that. So he's like somebody who's been dropped into a position where he has no control over anything, and they're telling him, it's like somebody with an earpiece saying, say this, do this, do that, and that's it. Because it's like the Morgan McSweeney's, it's the Blue Labour people, it's the Labour Together people who wanted, okay, we want somebody who we can control. We can tell him, you do this, you do that. You support this policy, you support that policy. What happened to Beth Rigby? She disappeared. Oh, there she is. Anyway, let's move on. There are other stories to cover. Labour Together. What's happening in Iran? Well, I wanted to show you this short update on a bit of this update on what's happening.
Day 53 of the Iran war. On the 28th of February.
Day 53. Day 50. We're at 53 already. My goodness. Day 53 of Donald Trump's special 3-day operation. The 3-day special military operation. Remember, it was all about, we go in there, we don't have to worry about the Strait of Hormuz because we can go in there, remove the Ayatollah, the regime will collapse, the people will rise up, and then we'll have a friendly government by the end of the week.
Day 53 of the Iran war. On the 28th of February, President Trump unleashed the full force of the US military against Iran in the full expectation the war would be short, it would lead to an Iranian surrender, and of course the Iranians would have no cards to play at all. But despite weeks of intense military activity, the Iranians are still standing.
Will it be over by Christmas? It's like, honestly, will it be over by Christmas, or are we going to be here this time next year going, wow, who would have thought?
In fact, seem to have more leverage. With peace talks fast approaching, the Iranians have turned around and said they've got new cards to play in those negotiations. What are those?
Anthony says he's already won 5 times. 5 times.
Cards, and how are they going to play them? So the United States of America is perhaps the global military superpower. They would have expected a short and decisive victory over Iran. But as we hit day 53 of the war, it is interesting to see what the losses and the price of this conflict are to date. Now, the US claim they've lost 13 military service personnel and potentially just over 400 have been injured as well. It's more difficult to get the statistics from Iran, but the prevailing view seems to be that over 1,500 have lost their lives and potentially more than 20,000 have been injured during the course of the war.
You know what's very interesting? And I'm going to put on my conspiracy theory hat now. Do you remember there was a pilot who was rescued? Remember there were 2 pilots. One that was rescued, their plane went down. One that was rescued, and then the other was eventually rescued after that. Where are they? Like, you would imagine if there was a pilot who was truly rescued, Donald Trump would be parading them And don't say, well, Donald Trump wouldn't do that because that'd be like a war crime or it'd be egregious propaganda. Donald Trump, of course, would be parading that person through the street. They would have been invited to the White House, given a medal. Donald Trump wanting a photo with them. Where are these people? That's an honest question. And don't say, well, it's because he'd be breaking some sort of rules. Donald Trump doesn't care about rules. Or the military wouldn't allow something. Of course, the military would do whatever Donald Trump tells them to do. Or Pete Hegseth would tell them to do. Like, honestly, what happened to these people? Or did they actually exist in the first place? Because I'm more of the idea that the plane went down and the bodies were recovered, not live individuals, not people saved. Bodies were probably recovered. Because if the bodies had been left behind, the Iranians would have got them. So I imagine the bodies were recovered, and then the families were told, I'm sorry, your son or daughter was killed in action. That's it. They wouldn't tell them, we can't give you any more information for security reasons. And they would never know who they were. Like they would never know what happened to them. This is, of course, speculation, but it's very strange that Donald Trump has not used these people for propaganda purposes. It's true that Donald Trump was stopped from pressing the nuclear button. Seen so many stories about this one online. I don't know if it's true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. There may be people around him. I've said before, like, the people around him are grifters. They're not stupid. They're not insane. They may appear insane, but that's about maintaining a facade. So I think a lot of the people around him, they would be like, no, don't let him press the button. Or give him a fake button or something like that. They're not as insane as he is. Some of them probably are, but not all of them. Thanks, Kirsty. Freckapony, thanks so much for that. Starmer, a puppet. Captain Starmer. He's instructable. Instructable. Captain Starmer. No, I won't sing. The situation is worse now than it was before Trump rubbished the contract that took years to establish. Iran has gained more power over the global energy supplies that they had before. He's made Iran great again. There are stories coming out about how Iran are now rebuilding the sites that the Americans and Israelis had destroyed. And the figures coming out about dead, 1,500, is very small. Although once again, we can't trust the Iranian media because they're not being on. We can't trust them. They're not going to tell us the full figure, and we may need to wait for a regime change for the real figures to come out. I feel the nuclear question news, nuclear options news is more just the internet going into meltdown and believe anything. We're living in an age where images are like the image of Richard Tice's campaigners. That didn't get through. That didn't work out too well for him. But as I said in the video, the further this goes on, the more advanced the technology becomes, the more difficult it will be to identify AI images. May I ask why you can't trust the Iranian media, but you can't trust the Western media? No, I'm saying we look. We can't trust them because we can't independently verify it. And what I mean by that is you can't have a journalist go into Iran and independently verify stuff. That's why we can't trust the state media in Iran. Like, if something happens in, you can't trust Fox News, or you can't trust some of the American media either. But generally, if something happens in a country, there isn't a restriction on other media companies going in there to verify. So if there are restrictions, then of course we can't trust it by default. I'm not saying that they're trying to hide stuff. Maybe they are, but if there are restrictions on independent media going in there, or foreign media going into a particular area, then of course we can't trust one source. And I wouldn't tell anyone to trust one source from anything. Like, if the BBC reported on something and then ITV reported on the same thing, and Channel 4 and Sky News reported on, then, when you put them together, you can say, okay, you can get a bit of consensus on what actually happened. But if one news agency reported something and nobody else did, then it'd be a bit suspect. Apparently, a fifth of Americans can't identify the US on a map. Perhaps what the US needs is to do is help them find it and invade the US. Who's going to do that? Donald Trump will invade the United States. Is that true? But considering what's happening at the moment, maybe it is. I love all those Vox Pop videos where you see people on the street are asked, like, can you find Iran on this map? Or can you find, Russia on this map? Or can you find Ukraine on this map? It's funny also, sometimes people say, like, can you find Narnia on this map? And then people try to find it. It wouldn't surprise me, Max. No. Thanks, Brad. Moving on. I wanted to cover some other stories. So the Strait of Hormuz is still open and closed at the same time. Gaza comes to mind. Yes, when it came to Gaza, independent media were not able to go in and verify what was happening. I want to show you this clip from friend of the show, Liz Webster, who is speaking here about what Britain could do when it comes to food shortages. And we may see food shortages, or at least a higher price of food, as the Strait of Hormuz remains closed.
So in the First World War and in the Second World War, we were in this situation where we could not realistically feed ourselves, but we tried as hard as we could to produce as much food as we can to minimize the amount of shipping necessary, right? And obviously historians debate what this achieved, right? I think everyone agrees that we did vastly increase the amount of food being produced from our own land, and we saw this great rural revival, all these kind of things. But if nothing else, it simply frees up shipping for armaments and other things. So there is definitely... I don't think anyone after the war was arguing that this was the wrong thing to do. I think there was a consensus which has been preserved by Europe until Brexit. So I think the situation is the same. I think there is an argument against it, but I think that history shows pretty unanimously, if you read what people were saying at the time, that we're sort of heading down the wrong path and need to be thinking about re-implementing some sort of measure to ensure production. I mean, the War Agricultural Executive Committees were reinstituted in 1936, before the Second World War, so they were ahead of the game, and I think we should be as well.
And I think he's right. Now, when it comes to food security in the UK, it is a bit of a problem because you're comparing a situation where the population was much smaller in 1936 than it is in 2026. We rely much more on international trade than we did back, was it 80 years ago, 90 years ago. So it's we're sort of comparing apples and oranges here, but it makes sense to encourage people to grow their own fruit and vegetables if they can. Create allotments was a huge thing back in the 70s and 80s, where the communities would have a piece of land available to them from the council or from an association, and people could go there and they could grow some vegetables. And I think it's important to encourage people to do that and provide people with the resources to do that. But we need to ensure more and more, if we're not talking about war, we're talking about climate change. So we need to strengthen protections for protection when it comes to food security, because it's so important. As we're seeing here, the restrictions on fertilizer and CO2 through the Strait of Hormuz means that, we don't have enough fertilizer, which is of course going to make it difficult to grow crops, which of course will make food more expensive. And who's most impacted by food inflation is the poorest people in society. And then when it comes to CO2, we need CO2. In some cases, CO2 is used for food preservation. So, the polystyrene boxes normally have some CO2 inside them to keep whatever produce inside fresh for a longer period of time. But this is being impacted as well. So if companies don't have access to that, there will be a shortage, and this, of course, will drive up the price. I'm voting for reform. Sure you are. Anyway, guys, I want to move on. I want to show you this. This is probably a video that you guys have probably seen online, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I want to show you it. It's absolutely insane. Hold on.
And this is your first seating area, minimalist.
Let me go back a little bit. Okay, have a look at this.
When you live above sound, when you are high enough above the concrete jungle that is New York City, there is something about the passage of time when you're in this home that I've never experienced anywhere else in the world. And it's not just the height, it's the volume, the 30-foot ceilings, this space that's been crafted to be unlike anything else, which is why we call it the one above all else.
Welcome to the penthouse at Central Park Tower, the most expensive home for sale on earth, with an asking price of $250 million.
Okay, we can stop there. $250 million for an apartment in New York City. Okay. Who is buying this? Nobody is buying it to live in it. See, this is part of the problem here. This is what Gary Stevenson has been talking about as well. What happens is these apartments. I've seen other videos like this, and you can find other videos online if you look for, a £100 million house or $100 million apartment or villa or whatever. And when I started looking, when I saw these videos that were sent to me, I was like asking, who the hell spends this amount of money on a house? And then I did a bit of research into it, and these are not sold for people to live in. They're sold as assets. So it's an asset that you buy, your company buys, and then it's able to use it to flip it later for a higher price, or it's able to use it for to funnel money into it. It's a way of dealing with taxes, and there are reasons people buy these not to live in. They're not designed. They're beautiful apartments, beautiful houses, but they're not actually for people to live in. This is how fucked up our society has become. We're building very, very expensive houses and apartments for people not to live in them. If you look at in central London as well, the richest parts of London, there are houses that are completely empty. Why? Because they're bought in order to hide money, or to avoid taxes, or to have some sort of investment, and then it's flipped to make a profit. They're not actually houses for people to live in. And if you have situations like this, of course, it's going to drive up the cost of housing, because there's a massive piece of real estate that people cannot live in. So if you want to live in New York, you're going to have to spend more than any other city in the United States, or maybe other parts of New York, because land is so limited in New York that any bit of land is taking, this piece of land is taking it away from somebody else. Like, how many apartments could you fit there that could actually be used for people to live in? Once again, this is not about people living in it. It's insane. By the way, Zormandami is going to tax those properties, especially including Trump Tower. Yes, we'll have to wait and see if he's successful. I hope he is. It's not. This is not beautiful, Max. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. It does look like. There are some other images. Let me see. That's quite nice. I think that's quite nice. Not worth $250 million, but it's not actually because it's not designed for living in. It's just designed to make a profit. Very nice kitchen. Still not worth $250 million. I am Ozymandias. I don't understand that. Thanks, Kirsty. AI Max. Is it? This is AI. I hope not. How did they get the piano up there? Very good question. How the hell did you get a piano all the way up? Unless they built the piano there, like they brought it up, or maybe they used a crane to get it up. I'm not sure. It's insane. Anyway, not nice after an earthquake. No. Mandami better do it. It's nice if you're staying over for a week. Yes, it'd be a nice place to spend the weekend. I'd love to stay in a place like that, but not spending $250 million. It's insane. Anyway, it's a sort of scam that these houses are about. So sticking with housing, 5 towns added to tax relief scheme tackling vacancy and dereliction. So this is in Ireland. Drogheda and Dundalk are among 5 towns officially added to the tax relief scheme aimed at tackling vacancy and dereliction. The Live in City initiative now includes the 2 County Louth towns, as well as Athlone in County Westmeath, Letterkenny in County Donegal, and Sligo. From today, property owners in specifically designated parts of the 5 towns will be eligible for tax relief to refurbish or convert buildings for residential or commercial use. So this is actually quite a good thing, I think. It's about giving business owners or giving people a tax incentive to develop more residential or commercial buildings, because a lot of buildings are derelict or are just empty. And of course, there's a housing crisis. There's a renting crisis. So initiatives like this can help maybe turn things around a little. Okay, let's move on. I wanted to show you this involving Donald. No, this one first. This is insane with Donald Trump. Oh, God. It's not so much Donald Trump, but his supporters.
Tonight, former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting 3 times in less than 24 hours, raising questions about the 2024 assassination attempt of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, which was so crucial to that election, including asking, quote, President Trump of all people should be leading the charge. Why isn't he? And she adds, why the cover-up? The former Trump ally joining a growing list of conservatives raising similar questions and demanding answers. Tony O'Sullivan is out front.
And what really frightens me and scares me and makes me angry is suddenly now I'm in on a conspiracy theory.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Some liberals have long dabbled in conspiracy theories about the Trump assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania.
The first thing that ran through my head is because we cannot believe this man ever, that it was somehow fake.
Like these.
And that's sort of true. Like, I actually think Donald Trump was shot. I don't think it was staged. I told you it was staged. I don't know. But if somebody keeps lying to you all the time, then when something true happens, then you're not going to believe them. So my ear, it is strange how Donald Trump's ear recovered miraculously. He was shot in the ear, but then it appeared that, hey, everything, the very next day it's back to normal, which is very strange. What are people doing? I think these people are protesting.
Women I met at an anti-Trump protest outside the RNC a couple of days after Butler.
So you initially thought it was staged?
Yep. Yes, as we all did.
Do you still believe that?
Yes.
We don't know.
I'm not sure.
It's not impossible.
But I couldn't help but wonder, because we've been lied to over and over by this man. The way he came up and raised his fist and acted like it was nothing.
Since the early days of the investigation,
it does like if somebody was shooting at you, you wouldn't stand up and wave your fist. That's not what a normal person would do. You know, you come out after when you know that the coast is clear, that everything is safe. Then, because you would have no idea if there was just one shooter. You don't know if they were reloading. You don't know what the hell they were doing. So you'd be getting the hell out of there as quickly as possible.
FBI has repeatedly pushed back on conspiracy theories about Trump's would-be assassin Thomas Crooks. Both Justice Departments under President Joe Biden and Donald Trump have found the same thing.
Just to be clear, did Thomas Crooks act alone?
Yes, based on the evidence that we have, that is the conclusive finding of the matter.
You have to believe this guy? Okay.
But over the last few weeks, as many are speaking out against the Iran war...
Just admit you staged it in Butler. It was the heat of the campaign.
What? Who is this guy with a strange hat and strange glasses? We need to stop with these damn strange people with strange hats and stuff doing podcasts.
People do crazy things in campaigns.
Prominent people who supported Trump's re-election campaign, like comedian Tim Dillon, have started to express doubts about what happened in Butler that day. Trump survived, but Corey Comparator, who was standing in the crowd behind him, died.
Now, of course, a real person died, and that's terrible. R.I.P. And they should say that in high stakes things like this, stuff like that happens.
Joe, thanks a lot for joining us.
Butler conspiracy theories really started to pick up in the MAGA world after Joe Kent appeared on the Tucker Carlson show last month. Kent was a high-ranking intelligence official who resigned in protest over the Iran war.
I mean, we still don't know what happened in Butler. We don't know what happened with Charlie Kirk. And by no means am I saying, like, you know, the Israelis did this or any of that, but I'm saying there's a lot of unanswered questions there.
Trisha Hope, who is a Trump delegate at the RNC in 2024, has been vocal online about her doubts, posting, "Since the attempt on his life, Trump has shown no interest in investigating what really happened. He never mentions it. It's as if it never happened, except when he tells us he took a bullet for us." Marjorie Taylor Greene has shared Trisha's post, and she added over the weekend, "I'm not calling the Butler assassination a hoax, but there are a lot of questions that deserve public answers."
The far more significant story involves the government, the DOJ, and the FBI, which have hidden from the public what they know about Thomas Crooks.
Brad, once again, thanks so much, Brad. When Trump's ballroom is finished, his psychopathic circle will perform a human centipede that doubles as a conga line. Will Farage be there? Brad, you don't need to send a super chat. Just write a comment. What stage will Farage be at the end? Oh my goodness. I think Brad has watched the Human Centipede too many times. It was for research. Research into the Trump administration. It was staged. It certainly looks like that, yes. You know, the fact that the ear recovered immediately. How Trump didn't run away like a normal person would run away. How his team didn't drag him off, like they were sort of standing around him. They didn't try and get him out of there. I thought that's what the security team would normally do. And then Trump doesn't want to talk about it anymore. No more investigation. What happened? Who was this guy? You know, going into more information about him. Like, we had movies, we had documentaries, we had so much came out after JFK was shot. Went on for years, and even when Ronald Reagan was shot, there were a lot of investigations, documentaries, and everything. But when it comes to Donald Trump, nothing at all. Very strange. Guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I just want to cover one final thing here. What's happening with Nigel Farage? Don't worry, I'm not going to show you Nigel Farage, but Zoe Gardner had some interesting things to say here about Nigel Farage.
Reform are tapping into something important, aren't they?
Well, I think actually that's mistaken.
for many years, Nigel Farage could lay claim to being one of the only politicians in the country who really sort of had his finger on the pulse of what the British public was feeling. With this announcement and with recent other announcements, he's begun to lose his touch, frankly, has become radicalized through maybe believing that Twitter.com is the United Kingdom, and by facing these new threats to his right from, restore UK and advance UK and put your left hand in your right arm up UK, the different splintering far-right parties that we're seeing. And it's actually not mainstream British opinion that we should be going and removing the legal status from hundreds of thousands of people who are legally settled in this country and spending potentially billions of pounds on pursuing their deportation.
It's sometimes dangerous to read across from the United States, but sometimes it's informative. And what we've seen with Donald Trump is that in his determination to address illegal immigration into the United States, he tapped into a really groundswell of popular public opinion who supported the notion of much tougher controls. And while it has been controversial to see his ICE patrolmen out on the streets and grabbing people off the streets, Americans want a tough policy on immigration. The Brits want it too, don't they?
Wanting a tough policy on immigration is very different to wanting what Donald Trump is doing. Actually, Donald Trump has a net disapproval rating on almost everything, including on his management of immigration. There simply isn't a way to deport hundreds of thousands of people who have a legal status here currently, and to remove that legal status and hunt them down and enact forced deportations without massive violence. Recent polling in the UK suggests that only 11% of the country support what's going on in terms of Trump's ICE crackdown on immigration over there in the United States. This isn't what the country wants.
And she's right. Now, it's interesting because Farage recently has come out and said, hey, leave my candidates alone. So Reform, as I mentioned in another video, Reform have been recruiting everyone and anyone to be a candidate in the May elections. And that includes people from ethnic minority backgrounds. Now, is this because Reform UK are no longer racist? No, because they're desperate. They need people. They can't find people to be candidates, and whatever vetting process they have, it's the media. The vetting process is basically the media find shit on people after they become candidates, and that's not really working out very well for Reform. So they're looking for people who want to be candidates, and many people in certain communities will say, hey, I'm going to put myself forward as a candidate for Reform because Reform are on the up and up. I want to get into politics. Reform are a ladder to achieve that. And these are people from ethnic minority backgrounds. It's a sort of win for Farage in a way, because he's able to say, look, our party is not racist because we have people from different backgrounds in our party. And that works to a certain extent for Farage. But on the other hand, it pisses off the racists. It pisses off the people who are like, hey, I don't want Muslims in my party, or I don't want my councillor to be originally from Pakistan or India or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or wherever. So these people are switching to, full fat, far right, Rupert Lowe's party. They have somewhere else to go. And this is creating a bit of a problem for Farage. So he's trying to do, I think what Farage is trying to do is keep racists happy on the one hand by talking, I'm going to get rid of all these immigrants. We're going to deport people even who have a right to stay. And then at the same time, he's saying, no, we're going to bring people from different ethnic minority backgrounds on board, and you need to stop criticizing them or insulting them online because it's extremely racist. We don't want that. He's trying to appeal to the right and the center at the same time, sending out mixed messages. I don't know if it's going to work for him. Reform are already losing support in the polls. Some support is going to Restore Britain. Some support is actually going to the Conservatives. And why are people switching back to the Conservatives? I think it's two reasons. One is very short memories, and the other is they're looking at Reform and they're saying, I'm not really convinced. Better the devil you know. And in a way, and I'm holding up my hands here because I actually thought Kemi Badenoch would be an absolute disaster for the Conservatives. And I thought it'd be better to get rid of her as soon as possible. But in a sense, the longer she stays there, the better in a way it is for the Conservatives, in a limited and specific way. Because it shows that the party has sort of moved on from, the infighting and, this constant changing of leader. So in a sense, she creates a sense of stability within the Conservative Party if she remains. She's boring. She's not very good. She's prone to gaffes. She's a bit strange. She's not a very good leader. She's not a very good speaker. But she creates a sort of stability in the Conservative Party if she remains there. And that will convince some people who are not buying into reform anymore to go back to the Conservatives. Like if they brought back Boris Johnson, it would maybe turn off these people because they go, okay, we're back to another leader again and another leader. So they've kept Kemi in control, but she's still crap at PMQs. She has her on good days and bad days, but the thing is, PMQs is not something that really the voters care about. It's good for us people, like we watch it as political junkies, and some people may see the odd clip on social media, but the average voter doesn't watch PMQs. They don't care about PMQs. So this is why I say, like, if Keir Starmer has a great PMQs, it's not really going to move the needle with the voters. And if Kemi Badenoch completely destroys Keir Starmer at PMQs, you'll see it in the polling. The polling doesn't really change. It's only the polling will change if Labour do something good for the country or if they do something bad. That's when the polling will change really for them. And this is why I said that, replacing Starmer and not replacing the policies or replacing the vision is not really going to make any difference to Labour. A false sense, Max. Why don't they just process migrant workers and protect the vulnerable? Because that would be that'd be woke. Remember, woke is bad stuff. So you just say, but everything that you don't like is woke. That's it. We nerds love PMQs. Yes, we do. I'm not a big fan of PMQs. I'm not. I just almost at the end of the stream. So I just want to say this before we go. I'd actually prefer a PMQs where, the Prime Minister would be asked a question and the Prime Minister would respond with, no, that's actually a very good question. Yeah, let me try and answer it now. Like a normal person. I think that would be a much better PMQs, be much more constructive, as opposed to this ridiculous theatre that you have. The theatre, I think, is the problem. It's good for clicks and likes and entertaining, and the media love PMQs that way, but it's not good governance. It's not good for democracy. There are occasions where somebody stands up and asks a reasonable question, and sometimes a minister might answer, but it's the theatre that really drags it down for me. It should actually be a case of, interesting questions get interesting answers. And it should be a way of, oh, that's an interesting question. Okay, let's try and answer it for the MP. But it's not like that. It's the opposite. It's like, how can I avoid answering that question? I'd watch PMQs if they'd bring back Bercow. Yes, bring back Operation Bring Back Bercow. They can't answer the question seriously, as they don't actually believe in anything that they're doing. It's all fingers in the wind, and that's right. Who do you like, Max? In the sense of politicians? Zach Polansky. I like Zach Polansky, of course. For now, I'm not saying it's set in stone. It's definitely not a cult. I think, he has his problems. But I think, in England in particular, Zach Polansky. And it'd be good to see him in the House of Commons, but he's not set in stone. It's not the case of the one because he's a councillor. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks to everyone who sent a super chat, greatly appreciated. We have a one for the road. I hope this is not too offensive to people. I know this guy is a bit controversial, but I liked this video he did on Starmer and what's happening at the moment, so I hope you enjoy it. And I will see you on a Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and enjoy this before we go. Just let me get out of the way.
Meanwhile, the Financial Times is reporting that Ollie Robbins is contemplating legal action against his dismissal. Perhaps little wonder, given he was so spectacularly fired out of a cannon by the Prime Minister over the appointment of an ambassador that had been signed off before Sir Ollie even arrived at the Foreign Office. Let's take a look at how this morning's hearings to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee unfolded. He's a fucking amateur. It's a totally shameful, embarrassing, testicle shrivelling, arsehole dilating embarrassment. He sacked this guy Robbins when it turns out he didn't need to. Right? One of the most absurd acts of political self-harm any Prime Minister has ever committed. Yet another example of terrible, terrible judgment on the part of the Prime Minister. He looks like a fucking amateur. Starmer has ended up firing the guy that he brought in to deliver the very thing he wanted him to deliver, and then fired him for delivering it. You see him yesterday in Parliament. Yeah, his entire parliamentary party looking at him with embarrassment, and everyone else in Westminster rubbing their hands with glee, shouting liar at him in the chamber, just so that they can put the footage of them being thrown out of the chamber by Lindsay Hoyle on their Instagram feed to make them look hard. Either the Prime Minister is just lying to us, or he is demonstrating a consistent lack of judgment on an almost planetary scale. Either of those traits in a political leader should be cause for concern. Someone who lies a lot, or someone who shits the bed every time they have a bad day at the office. Liar or bed shitter. And I don't think he's a liar. He's a bed shitter. There's shit everywhere. He's shit. Shit at politics, shit at communicating, shit at apologising. Well, I made a mistake and I apologised, but it's everyone else's fault. He did it. It's like having Manuel running the country. I know nothing. Nobody told me nothing. Then why didn't you ask? He's shit. Shit at almost all aspects of his job, apart from Iran, which I think he's doing all right on. But he's shit. The entire Mandelson saga has been own goal after own goal. Keir Starmer's entire premiership has been own goal after own goal. You know, I thought we were getting dull, boring, nasal, but competent and relatively trustworthy, particularly when compared to the previous lot of populist grifters, GB News hosts and multi-millionaire hedge fund managers. But what we've got is a slippery, disingenuous solicitor who has lost control. He's just toast. Toast made of white bread. He's panicked. He's a rabbit in the headlights of a high-speed train who's thrown a grenade at the civil service and they've just thrown it right back at him. First sign of trouble, Keir just throws the nearest senior civil servant under a bus until the storm passes. The problem is there's no one left to fire. Larry the cat, the chief mouser, withheld vital information from me. Amateur wanker. I tell you, my life was a lot less stressful when the Tories were in power. Well, because I didn't vote for those wankers, did I? Well, another tough day for Keir Starmer. The Mandelson affair seems to be going nowhere, and just weeks out from a very important election.
Okay, guys, so have a great week. I will see you on Friday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe, take care, and good night.